Mundaka Upanishad Om. O gods, may we hear auspicious words with the ears, while engaged in sacrifices, may we see auspicious things with the eyes, while praising the gods with steady limbs, may we enjoy a life that is beneficial to the gods. May Indra of ancient fame be auspicious to us, may the supremely rich, or all-knowing, Pusa, god of the earth, be propitious to us, may Garuda, the destroyer of evil, be well disposed towards us, may Brihaspati ensure our welfare. Om. Peace. 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 Om. Brahma, the creator of the universe and the protector of the world, was the first among the gods to manifest himself. To his eldest son Atharva he imparted that knowledge of Brahman that is the basis of all knowledge. The knowledge of Brahman that Brahma imparted to Atharva, Atharva transmitted to Anger in days of yore. He, Anger, passed it on to Satyavaha of the line of Bharadvaha. He of the line of Bharadvaha handed down to Angaras this knowledge that had been received in succession from the higher by the lower ones. Saunika, well known as a great householder, having approached Angaras duly, asked, O adorable sir, which is that thing, which having been known, all this becomes known? To him he said, there are two kinds of knowledge to be acquired, the higher and the lower. This is what, as tradition runs, the knowers of the import of the Vedas say. Of these, the lower comprises the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, the science of pronunciation etc., the code of rituals, grammar, etymology, meter, and astrology. Then there is the higher, knowledge, by which is attained that imperishable. By the higher knowledge, the wise realize everywhere that which cannot be perceived and grasped, which is without source, features, eyes, and ears, which has neither hands nor feet, which is eternal, multiformed, all-pervasive, extremely subtle, and undiminishing, and which is the source of all. As a spider spreads out and withdraws its thread, as on the earth grow the herbs, and trees, and as from a living man issues out hair, on the head and body, so out of the imperishable does the universe emerge here, in this phenomenal creation. Through knowledge Brahman increases in size. From that is born food, the unmanifested. From food evolves prana, Hiranyagarbha, thence the cosmic, mind, thence, the five elements, thence, the worlds, thence, the immortality that is in karmas. From him, who is omniscient in general and all-knowing in detail and whose austerity is constituted by knowledge, evolve this, derivative, Brahman, name, color and food. That thing that is such, is true. The karmas that the wise discovered in the mantras are accomplished variously, in the context of the sacrifice, where the three Vedic duties get united. You perform them forever with desire for the true results. This is your path leading to the fruits of karma acquired by yourselves. When, the fire being set ablaze, the flame shoots up, one should offer the oblations into that part that is in between the right and the left. It, i.e. the Agnihotra, destroys the seven worlds of that man whose Agnihotra, sacrifice, is without darsa and purnamasa, rites, devoid of chaturmasya, bereft of agrayana, unblessed with guests, goes unperformed, is unaccompanied by Vaisvedava, rite, and is performed perfunctorily. Kali, Kareli, Manojava, and Sulohita, and that which is Sudam Ravarna, as also Sphulingini, and the shining Visvarakai, these are the seven flaming tongues. These oblations turn into the rays of the sun, and taking him up they lead him, who performs the rites in these shining flames at the proper time, to where the single Lord of the gods presides over all. Saying, Come, come, uttering pleasing words such as, this is your well-earned, virtuous path which leads to heaven, and offering him adoration, the scintillating oblations carry the sacrificer along the rays of the sun. Since these 18 constituents of a sacrifice, on whom the inferior karma has been said to rest, are perishable because of their fragility, therefore those ignorant people who get elated with the idea this is, the cause of, bliss, undergo old age and death over again. Remaining within the fold of ignorance and thinking, we are ourselves wise and learned, the fools, while being buffeted very much, ramble about like the blind led by the blind alone. Continuing diversely in the midst of ignorance, the unenlightened take airs by thinking, we have attained the goal. Since the men, engaged in karma, do not understand the truth, under the influence of attachment, thereby they become afflicted with sorrow and are deprived of heaven on the exhaustion of the results of karma. The deluded fools, believing the rights inculcated by the Vedas and the Smritis to be the highest, do not understand the other thing, that leads to liberation. They, having enjoyed the fruits of actions, in the abode of pleasure on the heights of heaven, enter this world or an inferior one. Those who live in the forest, while begging for alms, viz. Those, forest dwellers and hermits, who resort to the duties of their respective stages of life as well as to meditation, and the learned, householders, who have their senses under control, they, after becoming freed from dirt, go by the path of the sun to where lives that Purusha, immortal and undecaying by nature. A Brahmana should resort to renunciation after examining the worlds acquired through karma. With the help of this maxim, there is nothing, here, that is not the result of karma, so what is the need of performing karma? For knowing that reality he should go, with sacrificial faggots in hand, only to a teacher versed in the Vedas and absorbed in Brahman. To him who has approached duly, whose heart is calm and whose outer organs are under control, that man of enlightenment should adequately impart that knowledge of Brahman by which one realizes the true and imperishable Purusha. That thing that is such, is true. As from a fire fully ablaze, fly off sparks in their thousands that are akin to the fire, similarly O good-looking one, from the imperishable originate different kinds of creatures and into it again they merge. The Purusha is transcendental, since he is formless. And since he is coextensive with all that is external and internal and since he is birthless, therefore he is without vital force and without mind, he is pure and superior to the other, superior imperishable, Maya. From him originates the vital force as well as the mind, all the senses, space, air, fire, water, and earth that supports everything. The indwelling self of all is surely he of whom the heaven is the head, the moon and sun are the two eyes, the directions are the two ears, the revealed Vedas are the speech, air is the vital force, the whole universe is the heart, and, it is he, from whose 2 feet emerged the earth. From him emerges the fire, i.e. heaven, of which the fuel is the sun. From the moon emerges cloud, and, from cloud, the herbs and corns on the earth. A man sheds the semen into a woman. From the Purusha have originated many creatures. From him, emerge, the Rik, Sama and Yajur mantras, initiation, all the sacrifices, whether with or without the sacrificial stake, offerings to Brahmanas, the year, the sacrificer and the worlds where the moon sacrifices, all, and where the sun, shines. And from him duly emerged the gods in various groups, the Sathyas, human beings, beasts, birds, life, rice and barley, as well as austerity, faith, truth, continence, and dutifulness. From him emerge the 7 sense organs, the 7 flames, the 7 kinds of fuel, the 7 oblations, and these 7 seats where move the sense organs that sleep in the cavity, and, have been deposited, by God, in groups of 7. From him emerge all the oceans and all the mountains. From him flow out the rivers of various forms. And from him issue all the corns as well as the juice, by virtue of which the internal self verily exists in the midst of the elements. The Purusha alone is all this, comprising karma and knowledge. He who knows the supreme, immortal Brahman, existing in the heart, destroys here the knot of ignorance, O good-looking one. It is, effulgent, near at hand, and well known as moving in the heart, and, it is, the great goal. On it are fixed all these that move, breathe, and wink or do not wink. Know this one which comprises the gross and the subtle, which is beyond the ordinary knowledge of creatures, and which is the most desirable and the highest of all. That which is bright and is subtler than the subtle, and that on which are fixed all the worlds as well as the dwellers of the worlds, is this immutable Brahman, it is this vital force, it, again, is speech and mind. This entity, that is such, is true. It is immortal. It is to be penetrated, O good-looking one, shoot at it. Taking hold of the bow, the great weapon familiar in the Upanishads, one should fix on it an arrow sharpened with meditation. Drawing the string, O good-looking one, hit that very target that is the imperishable, with the mind absorbed in its thought. Om is the bow, the soul is the arrow, and Brahman is called its target. It is to be hit by an unerring man. One should become one with it just like an arrow. Know that self alone that is one without a second, on which are strung heaven, the earth, and the interspace, the mind and the vital forces together with all the other organs, and give up all other talks. This is the bridge leading to immortality. Within that heart, in which are fixed the nerves like the spokes on the hub of a chariot wheel, moves this aforesaid self by becoming multiformed. Meditate on the self thus with the help of Om. May you be free from hindrances in going to the other shore beyond darkness. That self which is omniscient in general and all-knowing in detail and which has such glory in this world, that self, which is of this kind, is seated in the space within the luminous city of Brahman. It is conditioned by the mind, it is the carrier of the vital forces and the body, it is seated in food by placing the intellect, in the cavity of the heart. Through their knowledge, the discriminating people realize that self as existing in its fullness everywhere, the self that shines surpassingly as blissfulness and immortality. When that self, which is both the high and the low, is realized, the knot of the heart gets united, all doubts become solved, and all one's actions become dissipated. In the supreme, bright sheath is Brahman, free from taints and without parts. It is pure, and is the light of lights. It is that which the knowers of the self realize. There the sun does not shine, nor the moon or the stars, nor do these flashes of lightning shine there. How can this fire do so? Everything shines according as he does so, by his light all this shines diversely. All this that is in front is but Brahman, the immortal. Brahman is at the back, as also on the right and the left. It is extended above and below, too. This world is nothing but Brahman, the highest. Two birds that are ever associated and have similar names, cling to the same tree. Of these, one eats the fruit of divergent tastes, and the other looks on without eating. On the same tree, the individual soul remains drowned, i.e. stuck, as it were, and so it moans, being worried by its impotence. When it sees thus the other, the adored Lord, and his glory, then it becomes liberated from sorrow. When the seer sees the Purusha, the golden-hued, Creator, Lord, and the source of the inferior Brahman, then the illumined one completely shakes off both merit and demerit, becomes taintless, and attains absolute equality. This one is verily the vital force which shines divergently through all beings. Knowing this, the illumined man has no, further, occasion to go beyond anything in his talk. He disports in the self, delights in the self, and is engrossed in spiritual effort. This one is the chief among the knowers of Brahman. The bright and pure self within the body, that the monks with habitual effort and attenuated blemishes see, is attainable verily through truth, concentration, complete knowledge and continence, practiced constantly. Truth alone wins, and not untruth. By truth is laid the path called Devayana, by which the desireless seers ascend to where exists the supreme treasure attainable through truth. It is great and self-effulgent, and its form is unthinkable. It is subtler than the subtle. It shines diversely. It is farther away than the far off, and it is near at hand in this body. Among sentient beings it is perceived as seated in this very body, in the cavity of the heart. It is not comprehended through the eye, nor through speech, nor through the other senses, nor is it attained through austerity or karma. Since one becomes purified in mind through the favorableness of the intellect, therefore can one see that indivisible self through meditation. Within, the heart in, the body, where the vital force has entered in 5 forms, is this subtle self to be realized through that intelligence by which is pervaded the entire mind as well as the motor and sensory organs of all creatures. And it is to be known in the mind, which having become purified, this self reveals itself distinctly. The man of pure mind wins those worlds which he mentally wishes for and those enjoyable things which he covets. Therefore one, desirous of prosperity, should adore the knower of the self. He knows this supreme abode, this Brahman, in which is placed the universe and which shines holy. Those wise ones indeed, who having become desireless, worship this, enlightened, person, transcend this human seed. He who covets the desirable things, while brooding on the virtues, is born amidst those very surroundings along with the desires. But for one who has got his wishes fulfilled and who is self-poised, all the longings vanish even here. This self is not attained through study, nor through the intellect, nor through much hearing. The very self which this one, i.e. the aspirant, seeks is attainable through that fact of seeking. This self of his reveals its own nature. This self is not attained by one devoid of strength, nor through delusion, nor through knowledge unassociated with monasticism. But the self of that knower, who strives through these means, enters into the abode that is Brahman. Having attained this, the seers become contented with their knowledge, established in the self, freed from attachment, and composed. Having realized the all-pervasive one everywhere, these discriminating people, ever merged in contemplation, enter into the all. Those to whom the entity presented by the Vedantic knowledge has become fully ascertained, who are assiduous and have become pure in mind through the yoga of monasticism, all of them, at the supreme moment of final departure, become identified with the supreme immortality in the worlds that are Brahman, and they become freed on every side. To their sources repair the 15 constituents of the body, and to their respective gods go all the gods of the senses. The karmas and the soul appearing like the intellect, all become unified with the supreme undecaying. As rivers, flowing down, become indistinguishable on reaching the sea by giving up their names and forms, so also the illumined soul, having become freed from name and form, reaches the self-effulgent Purusha that is higher than the higher, Maya. Anyone who knows that Supreme Brahman becomes Brahman indeed. In his line is not born anyone who does not know Brahman. He overcomes grief, and rises above aberrations, and becoming freed from the knots of the heart, he attains immortality. This rule has been revealed by the mantra, which runs thus: to them alone should one expound this knowledge of be who are engaged in the practice of disciplines, versed in the Vedas, and indeed devoted to Brahman, who personally sacrifice to the fire called Akarsai with faith, and by whom has been duly accomplished the vow of holding fire on the head. The seer Angiras spoke of this truth in the days of yore. One that has not fulfilled the vow does not read this. Salutation to the great seers. Salutation to the great seers. Om. O gods, may we hear auspicious words with the ears, while engaged in sacrifices, may we see auspicious things with the eyes, while praising the gods with steady limbs, may we enjoy a life that is beneficial to the gods. May Indra of ancient fame be auspicious to us, may the supremely rich, or all-knowing, Pusa, god of the earth, be propitious to us, may Garuda, the destroyer of evil, be well disposed towards us, may Brihaspati ensure our welfare. Om. Peace. 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 Knowing the all, it is an interesting trait of the Western mind that it wants encapsulations of things, lists of essentials, advice on shortcuts, and what is the one thing, in every department of life and thought. Whether this is a desire for efficiency or a form of intellectual minimalism or outright laziness is hard to say. Chances are it varies from person to person. Nevertheless, getting to the heart of the matter is something dear to the heart of Americans, especially. They are not alone in this attitude. The Upanishads reflect the same mentality. Perhaps that is why Vivekananda considered the West, and America particularly, as being more suited to the teachings of Vedanta, the Upanishads, than the contemporary East. In the first section of the Mundaka Upanishad we find the highest expression of this attitude, out of the infinite ocean of existence arose Brahma, firstborn and foremost among the gods. From him sprang the universe, and he became its protector. The knowledge of Brahman, the foundation of all knowledge, he revealed to his firstborn son, Atharva. A pre-creation story according to Indian texts, at the beginning of the present creation cycle Brahma, that person who was destined to be the creator/projector of the three worlds, awoke to find himself in infinite, empty space. At first he felt fear, but then he laughed at his foolishness, for there was no one there but him. Who would he fear? Then he pondered his situation, attempting to comprehend it. At one point a great voice resounded all around him, saying a single word, tapa, meaning do tapasya. This awakened Brahma's memory of yoga meditation, so he began to meditate. After some time he attained full memory of his past as well as the knowledge of how to create the worlds, which he did. He also became established in direct perception of Brahman. Among his children brought forth through his meditation, was Atharva, to whom he taught the way to realize Brahman. In turn Atharva taught this same knowledge of Brahman to Anji. Anji, again, taught it to Satyabhaha, who revealed it to Angaras. The essence of knowledge to Angaras came upon a time Saunaka, the famous householder, and asked respectfully, "Holy Sir, what is that by which all else is known? We have already been told that the knowledge of Brahman, Brahmavidya, is the foundation of all knowledge. But Saunaka has a very salutary impatience and ambition. He wants to know what is the one thing which, being known, causes all to be known. This is both a wise quest and a wise attitude. Little Red Riding Hood ended up in the wolf's stomach because she dawdled on the way instead of going straight to her destination. If we look at the history of religions we will find that the countries which produce the most enlightened persons are those countries which have produced empires. For when such people turn to spiritual life they go after the loftiest spiritual attainments, they become imperialists of the spirit. They seek out the most direct way, and go there. Saunaka is one of them and hopefully so are we. Knowledge is the subject of the question, so Angaras lays a foundation for his answer. Those who know Brahman, replied Angaras, say that there are two kinds of knowledge, the higher and the lower. The lower is knowledge of the Vedas, the Rik, the Sama, the Yajur, and the Atharva, and also of phonetics, ceremonials, grammar, etymology, meter, and astronomy. The higher is knowledge of that by which one knows the changeless reality. Analysis of knowledge. Now we should look at this very carefully. First of all, who do we believe? When I first emerged from the deadly cocoon of fundamentalist Protestantism, my intellectual world was quite simple, simplistic, actually. Fortunately I first read the Bhagavad Gita and then Autobiography of a Yogi. The next step was to get out of my deadly environment, so within a few months I was on the plane to California and wider horizons. But I discovered in a short time that wider horizons can have a drawback. I began encountering just about every shade of philosophical and religious thought and attitude, most of them incompatible with each other. Almost daily I was told conflicting things, and always with the utmost confidence. As someone once said, the problem with ignorance is that it picks up confidence as it goes along. I loved being in the wide open mental spaces of California, and I still do, but which way should I go? Who could, or should, I trust? Since I had been shaken out of my spiritual entombment by learning of the yoga tradition, I wisely followed the principle that only those who know God really know anything. So I sought out the teachings of illumined yogis of past and present, discarding those inauspicious Indian teachers who claimed to have a new revelation for a new age, and only paying attention to those who were right in the center of the eternal Dharma. Once somebody asked me what a great yogi's distinctive teachings were. None. I replied with satisfaction. If he taught anything new I would have nothing to do with him. Truth is eternal. I appreciated it if the English was good, and equally if the book was free from typos, and expressed in a way that someone in the 20th century like myself could comprehend, but I wanted to know what all the great yogis throughout history knew, the tried and proven way to God. My great blessing was being able to trek many times to the Vedanta bookshop in Hollywood. There I found an abundance of eternal wisdom, the same wisdom that had been flowing in a life-giving stream for countless ages, like the holy Ganga. The Ganga that emerges at Gangotri high in the Himalayas is the same Ganga that flows into the ocean at Gangasagar. In the same way I found on the shelves of that little shop the same Sanatana Dharmas spoken by the primeval sages of India. A little further east in Hollywood at the Self-Realization Fellowship I listened every Sunday to an ideal presentation of both the philosophy and spiritual practice of eternal India. All this prepared me for India where, as a friend of ours once said about the same pilgrimage, I got the idea. And have treasured it ever since. So those who know Brahman say that there are two kinds of knowledge, the higher and the lower. The lower, they say, is the knowledge of scriptures, ritual, philosophic, expression and such like including, by the way, astrology. Please note that they do not denounce these things as useless or as ignorance. They are definitely said to be knowledge, and a sensible person appreciates and learns them to a reasonable and practical degree. But it must be understood that the essential, the higher is knowledge of that by which one knows the changeless reality, Brahman. The knowledge which enables us to know is to be sought for and prized above all else. While writing this previous sentence I could clearly hear in memory the recorded voice of Yogananda saying, I walked my feet off from Cape Cormoran to the Himalayas in search of the knowledge that would reveal God to him. The lesser knowledge tells us only of that which changes, including our own short physical life. But the higher knowledge brings us to the changeless reality. By this is fully revealed to the wise that which transcends the senses, which is uncaused, which is indefinable, which has neither eyes nor ears, neither hands nor feet, which is all-pervading, subtler than the subtlest, the everlasting, the source of all. The absolute consciousness, the totality of being, is shown to the wise, to the yogis, by this knowledge. And the world? What about this world in which we find ourselves? Is it to be despised as worthless and antithetical to Brahman, our goal? Lest we think such a foolish thing, Angaras further says, as the web comes out of the spider and is withdrawn, as plants grow from the soil and hair from the body of man, so springs the universe from the eternal Brahman. The world, then, is an extension or emanation of Brahman. In other words, the world is Brahman. We are living and moving in divinity, manifesting as the world. Why, then, do we say that the world is illusory? It is the world in our mind, our perception, our interpretation, of the world, that is an illusion, not the world itself. In Indian texts we continually find the simile of the snake in a rope or a man in tree. That is, in darkness we see a rope lying on the ground and immediately see a snake lying there. We see the glitter of its eyes and may even hear it hiss. Yet, when light is brought we see only a rope. The rope was always real, was always there. The snake was an illusion that existed only in our mind. In the same way, walking in the darkness we may see a dead tree and mistake it for a human being, taking its branches for arms. We may even see the arms move and think we see a face looking at us. But when we come closer we see it is only a tree, and a dead one, at that. The tree was real, but the man was not. Illusion is always a mental phenomenon, never a real or objective thing. So it is illusion and ignorance we must decry, but never find fault with the world, for the world is Brahman. The chain of causation. The sage now gives us an outline of the process of the emanation of the world from Brahman. Brahman willed that it should be so, and brought forth out of himself the material cause of the universe. From this came the primal energy, and from the primal energy mind, from mind the subtle elements, from the subtle elements the many worlds, and from the acts performed by beings in the many worlds the chain of cause and effect, the reward and punishment of works. Creation is also spoken of as expansions from Brahman, and that is the mode here. Brahman first expands as primordial matter, then as primordial energy. From this comes the intelligence inherent in creation, then the elements, and the various worlds in which they predominate. The final ingredient, though, comes from the sentient beings within the universe, Karma. God supplies the stage and we supply the actions and reactions which unfold upon the stage. Brahman sees all, knows all, he is knowledge itself. Of him are born cosmic intelligence, name, form, and the material cause of all created beings and things. No wonder, then, that in the Gita, that great digest of the Upanishads, we find the words, Brahman is the ritual, Brahman is the offering, Brahman is he who offers to the fire that is Brahman. If a man sees Brahman in every action, he will find Brahman. Seeing is freeing. Delusion and ignorance. We usually think of delusion and ignorance in terms of ordinary life and its situations. Those who are more occupied with spiritual matters assume that they are beyond such, but Angiras thinks differently, and so should we. Finite and transient are the fruits of sacrificial rites. The deluded, who regard them as the highest good, remain subject to birth and death. Karma and religion. I think just about everybody puts karma into two lumps, good karma and bad karma. But that is not very satisfactory. Karma, like all of life, has many nuances and can vary greatly. Some karma, for example, creates more karma, and some actually dissolves karma. For example, Sri Ramakrishna said that all spiritual practices are part of karma yoga, but they deliver us from karma. There are material, mental, and spiritual karmas. The material and mental karmas impel us to more of the same, whether good or bad. But spiritual karma enables us to rise above the material and mental planes and free ourselves from karmic bondage. Angiras wants us to understand that religious karma is not always spiritual. This should not surprise us when we can readily see that most religion is based on material goals. Stuff and happiness just about sums up the motives of all the religions of the world, including that of modern India. As a result, most religious acts culminate in more mental and psychological involvement, not freedom. In the verses omitted by Swami Prabhavananda, it is pointed out that most religion creates karma that takes us to heaven, and then dumps us back on earth when our merit is used up. So we end back where we started. What a jip! Just because a religious act is either directed toward God or offered to God does not mean it will ultimately lead to God. Usually it leads us away from God into the labyrinth of relative existence in some form or other. Since most people have been cultivating a taste for earthly things through life after life, this suits them. But it should gall us, and we should refuse the pursuit and get off the merry-go-round. Great delusion, as I say, they love and cling to their miserable condition. As the Upanishad continues, living in the abyss of ignorance, the deluded think themselves blessed. Attached to works, they know not God. Works lead them only to heaven, whence, to their sorrow, their rewards quickly exhausted, they are flung back to earth. Then the heart of the matter is revealed in the next verse, considering religion to be observance of rituals and performance of acts of charity, the deluded remain ignorant of the highest good. Having enjoyed in heaven the reward of their good works, they enter again into the world of mortals. Rituals of worship and good deeds certainly produce good karma, but that is not the force that lifts us above samsara, the ever-turning wheel of birth and death. If our religion consists only of outer observances, it will condition our consciousness even more to identify with the material level of existence. And that identification will be a round-trip ticket for our return to another birth after another death. Even helping others is spiritually valueless if it is not done with a wider, spiritual perspective. One of the hallmarks of today's ineffectual religion is its obsessive involvement in social action and reform. When we look at the lives of saints, we see they were the most generous of people, even sacrificing themselves for others. But they did these things not as their religion, but as an expression of their love for God and His children, which is the true religion. We must not remain ignorant of the highest good, but must seek that highest good within through meditation and the cultivation of spiritual consciousness even outside meditation. Unless we do this, we will find ourselves shuttled right back to earth on completion of our good heaven karma. Wisdom and truth. The wise. No one likes to be thought stupid, and all like to be thought intelligent. Even better is it to be thought wise. Of course, In all ages there have been the fools that preferred to be cool or sharp or neat or such idiotic expressions. The sad thing is that the vast majority want to be thought of as smart or wise, but only a small percentage care whether they really are smart or wise. The Upanishad is meant for these latter people, so the sage continues, but wise, self-controlled, and tranquil souls, who are contented in spirit, and who practice austerity and meditation in solitude and silence, are freed from all impurity, and attain by the path of liberation to the immortal, the truly existing, the changeless self. Let us look at the traits of the wise. They are disciplined, and so are self-controlled. As a result of their discipline they have become peaceful. Intent on spiritual development, giving priority to the spirit, they have become contented, for outside the spirit there is no peace or tranquility. This means that they are harmonious and balanced, as well. They continually engage in those disciplines which purify them, and by being so purified they are capable of becoming adept in meditation. As a result of these qualities they are firmly on the path to liberation, and shall without doubt attain to the self which is the only truly existing thing, changeless and sure from eternity. Origin and return the imperishable is the real. As sparks innumerable fly upward from a blazing fire, so from the depths of the imperishable arise all things. To the depths of the imperishable they in turn descend. This is a spectacular simile, mostly because it happens to be the absolute truth. But a more literal translation brings out some important points Prabhavananda decided to pass over. Here is Swami Nikhilananda's rendering, as from a blazing fire, sparks essentially akin to it fly forth by the thousand, so also, my good friend, do various beings come forth from the imperishable Brahman and unto him again return. Swami Gambhirananda, the saintly president of Ramakrishna Mission, translated it this way, as from a fire, fully ablaze, fly off sparks, in their thousands, that are akin to the fire, similarly from the immutable originate different kinds of creatures and into it again they merge. Three prime truths. There are 3 points being made here that are the bedrock of Upanishad philosophy. First, all beings that exist, past, present, future, are of the same nature, even the same substance, as Brahman. Second, all forms, modes of existence, though ever-changing, proceed from the unchanging, unchangeable. This seeming contradiction is made possible by the illusory power of Maya. That is, the changing forms are illusory while the essential being, the self/Atman is unchanging. Third, having come from Brahman they shall all, without exception return to Brahman. When life is viewed this way we can understand its nature and purpose, and live accordingly. For the Upanishads are not interested in giving us empty theory without a practical application. Some traits of the source self-luminous is that being, and formless. He dwells within all and without all. He is unborn, pure, greater than the greatest, without breath, without mind. Pervading all, both Brahman and the Atman are yet untouched by any forms in which they dwell, knowing themselves through themselves, self-luminous. Both the internal and the external are permeated with the presence of conscious spirit. Although the forms floating on the surface of the ocean of being are born, conditioned, endowed with mind and senses, and compelled to live as a consequence of the sowing and reaping of karma in previous lives, in reality none of this takes place in an absolute, objective sense. Rather, it is the power of Maya that produces these appearances. As the Gita says, helpless all, for Maya is their master, the sage is telling us in this Upanishad that, almighty as Maya seems to be, spirit is greater than the greatest. When we are sunk in delusion, then Maya seems the most powerful, but when we transfer our conscious into spirit, then we find that the self is always the master of Maya, on the universal and the individual levels. Again, Brahman is the source, from him are born breath, mind, the organs of sense, ether, air, fire, water, and the earth, and he binds all these together. God's creation is never separated from him for an instant. By his indwelling presence he maintains and unifies them. All that exists is held in the mind of God, for they are his thoughts made visible or tangible. Heaven is his head, the sun and moon his eyes, the four quarters his ears, the revealed scriptures his voice, the air his breath, the universe his heart. From his feet came the earth. He is the innermost self of all. The universe is not really God's creation, it is his manifestation, his incarnation. And he remains its inner controller, Antariaman. From him arises the sun-illumined sky, from the sky the rain, from the rain food, and from food the seed in man which he gives to woman. Thus do all creatures descend from him. Though this differs from her style of expression, it reminds me of great wisdom spoken by Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science. She said that in reality we all come from God, but we ignore the fact. We say, everybody in my family gets, and then name some disease or negative condition. We think it is genetics that must manifest. But our real genes are divine qualities. Why do we not believe they will manifest in us? Our father and mother were adult human beings, and we became the same. The ultimate father/mother is God, so why do we neglect the development of divine consciousness? Divinity is our only true nature. From him are born hymns, devotional chants, scriptures, rites, sacrifices, oblations, divisions of time, the doer and the deed, and all the worlds lighted by the sun and purified by the moon. You cannot get more complete than that. From him are born gods of diverse descent. From him are born angels, men, beasts, birds, from him vitality, and food to sustain it, from him austerity and meditation, faith, truth, continence, and law. It is this last part that is of special meaning for us. We are told that austerity, tapasya, meditation, faith, truth, continence, and law arise from God. They are the presence of God manifesting in our life and through us to the world. Who, then, can be more beneficial to the world than a yogi? The word the, translated law, means both instruction and method. There is an innate order in the universe which each of us should embody. It is not learned intellectually but is intuited by the yogi. The yogi will then order his life accordingly, methodically. Of course, the supreme method is the method of meditation itself. From him spring the organs of sense, their activities and their objects, together with their awareness of these objects. All these things, parts of man's nature, spring from him. This explains how human beings are made in the image of God. In him the seas and the mountains have their source, from him spring the rivers, and from him the herbs and other life-sustaining elements, by the aid of which the subtle body of man subsists in the physical body. Thus Brahman is all in all. He is action, knowledge, goodness supreme. To know him, hidden in the lotus of the heart, is to untie the knot of ignorance. Knowing God. About God, further description of Brahman is now to be given along with instructions on how to know Brahman. The Upanishad is so clear, and the concepts have been referred to before, so some verses hardly need more than a sentence of comment. Self-luminous is Brahman, ever present in the hearts of all. He is the refuge of all, he is the supreme goal. In him exists all that moves and breathes. In him exists all that is. He is both that which is gross and that which is subtle. Adorable is he. Beyond the ken of the senses is he. Supreme is he. Attain thou him. The last part is the most important. What value is it to know about God if we do not go to God? Saint Silwan of Athos used to say that theology is the false mysticism of the ego, for people become satisfied, or even fascinated, with philosophical concepts that are nothing but bare words. Rare are those who want to experience the things they believe. In many instances it may be that people intuit the untruth of their religious beliefs and subconsciously know that they cannot be experienced. But it is sad to see those that have come to understand the concepts of karma, reincarnation, and evolution of consciousness still dawdling along with the theorists instead of getting on to the goal. He, the self-luminous, subtler than the subtlest, in whom exist all the worlds and all those that live therein, he is the imperishable Brahman. He is the principle of life. He is speech, and he is mind. He is real. He is immortal. Attain him, O my friend, the one goal to be attained. Not only must we attain God, we must understand while striving that he is the only goal to be attained, for everything else is antithetical to our eternal nature. The means to reach God having hopefully convinced us of the value of seeking God, the sage is going to tell us how to find God by telling us the actual means, affixed to the Upanishad, the bow incomparable, the sharp arrow of devotional worship. Then, with mind absorbed and heart melted in love, draw the arrow and hit the mark, the imperishable Brahman. Om is the bow, the arrow is the individual being, and Brahman is the target. With a tranquil heart, take aim. Lose thyself in him, even as the arrow is lost in the target. Here is Swami Gambhirananda's more literal version: taking hold of the bow, that is the great weapon familiar in the Upanishads, one should fix on it an arrow, sharpened with meditation. Drawing the string with the mind absorbed in its thought, hit that very target that is the immutable. Om is the bow, the soul Atma is the arrow, and Brahman is called its target. It is to be hit by an unerring man. One should become one with it just like an arrow. This is really a description of meditation, so each point is significant. Taking hold of the bow, Om is the bow. Right away we are being given a most valuable instruction in meditation. We take hold of Om by intoning it within. Our practice must not be passive, but calmly active. We are always to be in charge by taking hold of Om and applying it in meditation through the generation of subtle sound. See Om Yoga, its theory and practice. The active character of Om is indicated by its being called a bow, for a bow impels the arrow to its target. It is a matter of strength, of power. In the Rig Veda we find the Gayatri Mantra, a great prayer for enlightenment. We meditate on the spiritual effulgence of that supreme divine reality. May that impel us toward it. Om is the force that impels us toward divinity. That is the great weapon familiar in the Upanishads. Om is not just a weapon among many, it is the great weapon for conquering ignorance that is referred to throughout the Upanishads. This is not a matter of opinion or discussion. In the 11 basic Upanishads, the Gita and the Yoga Sutras, the only mantra recommended is Om, and the only meditation set forth is the meditation on Om. An honest perusal of these texts will reveal that this is neither an exaggeration nor a wishful interpretation. Although the wisdom of these sacred texts has been almost totally ignored for past centuries, their truth is not to be denied by any who ascribe to Sanatana Dharma. It is departing from the Upanishad philosophy that has resulted in the confused mess of contemporary Hinduism, the worst of its aspects being the treacherous and destructive idolatry of Gurudom. Because of this aberration, people have accepted a myriad substitutes for the Upanishad truth on the basis of Guru Bhakti and faith in the Guru. The resulting confusion is obvious to those not drowning in it themselves. One should fix on it an arrow, sharpened with meditation. The self is the arrow. Our very self, our very consciousness, is to be united with Om in calm and wholehearted attention. This can only be done by being purified by constant meditation according to Shankara's commentary. So meditation is itself the way to become proficient in meditation. The simple fact that we are meditating is assurance that we shall become more and more proficient in it. When that proficiency is gained, then we will easily unite our consciousness with Om. Drawing the string with the mind absorbed in its thought. Through constant meditation we develop the ability to fill our awareness with the inner intonations of Om, which act like the string of a bow to the mind that is fixed on it. Hit that very target that is the immutable, Brahman. We do not start out small and work up to bigger things. From the first we aim at Brahman. By means of this determination, Brahman alone will be realized by us without wandering into the psychic byways that can confuse and delude the wandering meditator who does not know the method of the Upanishads. It is to be hit by an unerring man. The idea here is that the one who can successfully hit the target of Brahman is one who has no distractions or waverings, whose mind remains firmly established in the japa and meditation of Om. There is a kind of parable about this in the Mahabharata. In Yoga as a universal science, Swami Krishnananda tells it this way: Those who are familiar with the Mahabharata know the story of the tournament arranged by Acharya Drona for the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The test of concentration which Dronacharya arranged for those boys was like this. There was a tree with many branches. In one fine twig, he hung a wooden bird. The eye of the bird was looking like a black spot, and that eye was to be shot by the arrow. So he asked the boys, "Concentrate yourself on the eye of that bird and hit it. Look. What do you see?" "Well," one said, "well, I see a bird sitting on the tree." Dronacharya said, "You are unfit. You are not able to concentrate." Then he asked another, "What do you see?" "I see the bird sitting on the branch." "No, you are not able to concentrate." Then he asked Yudhishthira, "What do you see?" "I see only the eye." "No. No good," he said. He asked Arjuna. Arjuna said, "I see only the black spot. I see nothing else." "Yes, you are the man," said Dronacharya, "hit it." Arjuna's concentration was so intense that he could see only the black spot. He could not see even the eye of the bird there, let alone the bird and the tree and the people around. That was Arjuna. And that must be us. It may take time, but it nonetheless must come about. One should become one with it, just like an arrow. The arrow embeds itself in the target and becomes one with it. This is not an occasional ascent to higher awareness, but a permanent establishment in the being of Brahman. It is meditation on Om that can accomplish this. What we will perceive in that union as a result of our meditation we shall directly perceive. In him are woven heaven, earth, and sky, together with the mind and all the senses. Know him, the self alone. Give up vain talk. He is the bridge of immortality. This verse actually refers to Om, and literally says, "On that Om are strung heaven, earth, space, the mind, and all the senses." It alone is the sole support of all. Having known the self through Om, discard other speech or mantras and their results. For this Om is the bridge to immortality. That is a bit different. Om is the all-encompassing reality from which all things have come. It alone leads us back to immortality. Om should be our continual, and in meditation our only, thought insofar as it is possible and practical. Where we find God within the lotus of the heart he dwells, where, like the spokes of a wheel in its hub, the nerves meet. Meditate on him as Om easily mayest thou cross the sea of darkness. Gambhirananda, with that hub in which are fixed the nerves nadis like the spokes on the hub of a chariot wheel, moves this aforesaid self by becoming multiformed. Meditate on the self thus with the help of Om. May you be free from hindrances in going to the other shore beyond darkness. At the core of all our manifest existence there moves the immortal spirit self which has assumed all the forms and aspects we call us. Although these numberless veils hide the self from our present vision, we can meditate on it by the means of Om. This will remove all obstacles and carry us safely over the heaving waves of samsara into the harbor of spirit. As Patanjali says regarding Om, its constant repetition and meditation is the way. From it result the disappearance of obstacles and the turning inward of consciousness. The same thing is said in the Varha and Yoga Tattva, b. Upanishads. More about the heart. When the Upanishads speak of the heart they do not mean the physical organ that pumps blood, but the center of our being where the self ever dwells. The sage now speaks more about this spiritual heart. This self, who understands all, who knows all, and whose glory is manifest in the universe, lives within the lotus of the heart, the bright throne of Brahman. By the pure in heart is he known. The self exists in man, within the lotus of the heart, and is the master of his life and of his body. With mind illumined by the power of meditation, the wise know him, the blissful, the immortal. There is a great deal to learn from this verse. Since the self understands and knows all, to be truly known goes and wise all we need do is shift our awareness into our own self. Although the self should not be identified with external things such as our body or the world, nevertheless, the glory of our self, including the Supreme Self, is manifested in our own private universe and the greater universe as well. We can come to perceive spiritual realities hidden within the material illusions. The self abides in the core of our being, not in the physical heart. According to the great yogis, we can speak of the thousand-petaled lotus of the brain as our spiritual heart, especially the very core of the brain, the cave-like area within which the pineal gland is located. This is sometimes called the Chidakasha, the space of consciousness. Both God and the individual self dwell there. In the Sanskrit text there is the expression Brahmapuri, the city of God, used for this spiritual heart. It further says that God and the self are known by centering our awareness in this heart. It is meditation which illumines the mind and enables us to see and know this blissful, immortal self all around us, in everything. This is living. The knot of the heart, which is ignorance, is loosed, all doubts are dissolved, all evil effects of deeds are destroyed, when he who is both personal and impersonal is realized. When we enter into the consciousness of our individual spirit and the infinite spirit, the blinding veil of ignorance will dissolve away along with all the bonds of karma. In the effulgent lotus of the heart dwells Brahman, who is passionless and indivisible. He is pure, he is the light of lights. Him the knowers of the self attain. What greater goal can we have than this? The light of lights. In summation of this section, the sage says, him the sun does not illumine, nor the moon, nor the stars, nor the lightning, nor, verily, fires kindled upon the earth. He is the one light that gives light to all. He shining, everything shines. This immortal Brahman is before, this immortal Brahman is behind, this immortal Brahman extends to the right and to the left, above and below. Verily, all is Brahman, and Brahman is supreme. These thrilling words need no comment, only response. The two selves cross-eyed people see a single object as two. In the same way the ignorant see the one as many. Yet, there is a perverse spiritual cross-eyedness which works just the opposite, making its victim see two as one. This is the disease of half-baked Vedanta that is merely conceptual and not based on the experience that only yoga imparts. There is no such thing as a genuine Vedantist who is not first and foremost a yogi. Anyway, the Upanishad is now going to give us the right understanding of the Paramatman and the Jivatman, the Supreme Self and the individual self, their unity and their distinction, and their relationship with each other. Here, too, only the yogi will really understand what is being said. Like two birds of golden plumage, inseparable companions, the individual self and the immortal self are perched on the branches of the self-same tree. The former tastes of the sweet and bitter fruits of the tree, the latter, tasting of neither, calmly observes. This is a case where the Sanskrit original gives very precise information which is necessary for us to carefully peruse. Otherwise we will miss some remarkable truths. Three qualities. This verse gives us three words in relation to the two birds, the two selves, Suparna, Sayoja, and Sakaya. Suparna means intimately related, the idea being that the individual self and the cosmic self exist in an eternal relation. Sayoja means being in a state of union, perpetual union, as Shankara points out in his commentary. A secondary meaning of Sayoja is being in the same place, that the two selves are inseparable, are ever present to one another. According to Shankara, the third expression, Sakaya, means that the two selves have the identical name or designation, and exists in an identical manner. The Upanishads say that Om is the name or designator of them both and that they possess the same qualities, one in an absolute degree and the other in a limited degree. Sakaya also means companionship and friendship, indicating the deep personal relation between the Jivatman and Paramatman. The self-same tree is the body, and by extension, the cosmos. The form of every sentient being has two indwellers, the two selves. However, they do not have the same experience of the tree. The individual, the jiva, tastes the fruit of the tree in the form of the inner and outer senses, and according to the quality of that experience is made happy, unhappy, contented, discontented, and so forth. The individual undergoes experience. The Supreme Self, on the other hand, tasting of neither sweet or bitter experiences, calmly observes. God experiences being in all forms and is aware of all that the individual spirit experiences, yet, as a more literal translation says, he looks on without eating, without being affected or conditioned by it. But he does know exactly the effect and conditioning that accrues to the individual self. He is experiencing right along with us, but unlike us is not pulled into a mistaken identity with the body, mind and its experiences. The problem and the solution, on the other hand, the individual self, deluded by forgetfulness of his identity with the divine self, bewildered by his ego, grieves and is sad. But when he recognizes the worshipful Lord as his own true self, and beholds his glory, he grieves no more. This is quite interpretive, though correctly so. The literal translation of Swami Gambhirananda is, on the same tree, the individual soul remains drowned, as it were, and so it moans, being worried by its impotence. When it sees thus the other, the adored Lord, and his glory, then it becomes liberated from sorrow. We are drowned, submerged, in the deadly ocean of samsara, of continual birth, death, unsurety, pain, and confusion. Shankara points out that the individual is overwhelmed with confusion because it cannot understand what is really happening to it, and why. Just like a piece of driftwood on the heaving sea, it is lifted up and down, thrown onto the shore and then pulled out to sea again. So it grieves at its helplessness and hopelessness. All is changed, though, when the individual sees, right in the core of its being, the very God it has been hitherto worshipping as separate from itself. Experiencing within its own being the presence and the glory of God, and thereby realizing that glory as his own, the individual becomes liberated from sorrow. The sage elaborates on this, continuing, when the seer beholds the effulgent one, the Lord, the Supreme Being, then, transcending both good and evil, and freed from impurities, he unites himself with him. More literally, when the seer sees the Purusha, self-effulgent, Creator, Lord, and source of all relative existence, then the illumined one completely shakes off both virtue and vice, becomes taintless, and attains absolute equality, non-duality. That is, the jiva recognizes that Shiva, the Absolute, is its true nature. Then, no longer bound by do and don't, it is able to act according to its essential being. Not that morality will be abandoned, but that there will be no more need to think it should or should not do something. Rather, it will do the right and the perfect spontaneously, naturally, as a consequence of its rediscovered divinity. For it will be free from all bonds or compulsions whatever. This is because in the divine vision it has become free from all defects or blemish. But most important is the trait that is listed last, paramam samayam, supreme sameness, literally, but the meaning is absolute unity, and therefore absolute identify, with the Absolute itself. Since the two are really one, the Upanishad continues describing both the individual and the infinite selves, as they partake of one another's traits. The Lord is the one life shining forth from every creature. Seeing him present in all, the wise man is humble, puts not himself forward. His delight is in the self, his joy is in the self, he serves the Lord in all. Such as he, indeed, are the true knowers of Brahman. How to do it? Anyone who ponders these astounding words with intelligence will be eager to attain Brahman, so the sage tells how that is done. This effulgent self is to be realized within the lotus of the heart by continence, by steadfastness in truth, by meditation, and by superconscious vision. Their impurities washed away, the seers realize him. This is quite clear, but some precise terms should be considered to put a fine point on the message of this verse. Swami Gambhirananda renders it, the bright and pure self within the body, that the monks with attenuated blemishes see, is attainable through truth, concentration, complete knowledge, and continence, practiced constantly. The self within the body. The self is within the body, therefore it is absurd to disdain the body, and even more absurd to engage in a meditation practice that ignores the body and the necessity for its purification and spiritual empowerment. Just forgetting about the material side of things and flying off into pure spirit is an appealing idea. The problem is, it is mistaken and can never work. However long or short a journey, it always begins right from the point where we are. And at this point we are not only in the body, we are tied into it by a multitude of bonds that must be dissolved. Our yoga practice must cover this situation. The prime implication, though, is that since the self is right here in the body, it is not far away. We need not even seek it, just see it. The monks. The word rather poorly translated as monk is yatai, which actually means a wanderer. This is because in the ancient times in India the wandering ascetics who moved about teaching Dharma were given this title. They were not monks or sannyasis in the later sense. Obviously they were not married, as their mode of life prevented that, and their life was dedicated to spiritual discipline and teaching. Nevertheless, they were not considered outside society as the sadhu is today in India. They were simply those who sacrificed personal life to serve others. It was a noble way of life, but not a separation. The original Christian ascetics were just the same. They wore ordinary clothes and were considered Christian laity. The only distinctive thing about them was their way of life. The men usually lived on the edge of towns, usually as hermits. The women lived together in houses within the town for mutual protection. In the eyes of everyone they were pious bachelors and spinsters, not at all distinct from other Christians in an official sense. The Upanishad has a very informative expression, Kshinadasha, those whose mental defects such as anger, etc., have become significantly lessened. Eventually they will be totally eliminated, but even now such persons are capable of the beginning stages of knowing the self. This is important, because we tend to think that until we are absolutely perfect we cannot know either God or ourself. This is not so. Just as the sky becomes lightened even before the sun appears above the horizon, so it is with those yogis who earnestly strive for realization. The elementary stages of enlightenment dawn for them. Complete knowledge. Samyak Jnana, complete insight into the nature of the self both intellectually and intuitively, also enables us to begin experiencing the realities of the self. Of course this cannot occur outside of yoga practice that is disciplined and steady. Practiced constantly. Some translators think this word nitya, perpetual, refers to continence, brahmacharya, but others think it refers to constant and uninterrupted observance of all the virtues and practices listed in this verse. That is logical, because a break in any of these will set back the sadhaka to a significant degree, and in some cases can destroy the possibility of his continuance in sadhana by turning his mind away from the real to the unreal. This is, however, particularly true about brahmacharya as is seen over and over. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda relates this sad but telling incident. A year later, after entering the ashram, Kumar set out for a visit to his childhood home. He ignored the quiet disapproval of Sri Yukteswar, who never authoritatively controlled his disciples' movements. On the boy's return to Serampuri in a few months, a change was unpleasantly apparent. Gone was the stately Kumar with serenely glowing face. Only an undistinguished peasant stood before us, one who had lately acquired a number of evil habits. Master summoned me and broken-heartedly discussed the fact that the boy was now unsuited to the monastic hermitage life. Mukunda, I will leave it to you to instruct Kumar to leave the ashram tomorrow. I can't do it. Tears stood in Sri Yukteswar's eyes, but he controlled himself quickly. The boy would never have fallen to these depths had he listened to me and not gone away to mix with undesirable companions. He has rejected my protection, the callous world must be his guru still. This narrative is particularly ironic, since Kumar means a young male virgin. Now all this is extremely to the point, with no fudging under the guise of diplomacy or moderation. Perhaps that is why the sage then says to us, truth alone succeeds, not untruth. By truthfulness the path of felicity is opened up, the path which is taken by the sages, freed from cravings, and which leads them to truth's eternal abode. Once again Swami Gambhirananda helps us understand, truth alone wins, and not untruth. By truth is maintained forever the path called Devayana, by which the desireless seers ascend to where exists the supreme treasure attainable through truth. Truth in this context has a much higher and wider meaning than mere accuracy or honesty in speech. It means to be a living embodiment of the truth of our self-nature, and eventually to be a virtual incarnation of the realized truth, God, the supreme treasure attainable through truth. The God within, the sage without God Brahman is supreme, he is self-luminous, he is beyond all thought. Subtler than the subtlest is he, farther than the farthest, nearer than the nearest. He resides in the lotus of the heart of every being. This is the great mystery of the divine. It is subtle beyond subtlety, yet exists equally in the most tangible. God is utterly beyond us, and yet nearer to us than can be expressed. This latter fact is a foundation stone of spiritual life. The more we can turn inward, the deeper we can penetrate into our own essential being, the closer we will come to God. Yoga is an absolute necessity. Though Prabhavananda uses the expression lotus of the heart, the Sanskrit text has guhyam, in the cave, referring to the absolute core of our being. The eyes do not see him, speech cannot utter him, the senses cannot reach him. He is to be attained neither by austerity nor by sacrificial rites. When through discrimination the heart has become pure, then, in meditation, the impersonal self is revealed. No action or feeling or ideas can reveal God to us. But when the heart has become purified by the spiritual insight that only meditation can produce, then in meditation itself God is revealed. For, the subtle self within the living and breathing body is realized in that pure consciousness wherein is no duality, that consciousness by which the heart beats and the senses perform their office. Meditation is the beginning, middle, and end of spiritual life. There is a remarkable statement made here, that the same consciousness which even now causes the body, senses, and mind to function is the same consciousness in which the divine vision takes place. So we need not try to turn ourselves into something other than we are. We need only use it to free ourselves into spirit. For that which binds also frees. This is the unique understanding of the ancient sages in India, an understanding needed by the whole world. The sage the West may have no history of such great wisdom, but we have a little platitude that can say much. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. As yogis we should keep this principle ever in mind. The results of our yoga practice reveal its character, relevance, and value. The yogi should be thoroughly pragmatic. What is this doing for me, should be the constant inquiry regarding his sadhana. That this is not inappropriate is shown by the last verse in this section, whether of heaven, or of heavenly enjoyments, whether of desires, or of objects of desire, whatever thought arises in the heart of the sage is fulfilled. Therefore let him who seeks his own good revere and worship the sage. This tells us two things. First, whatever the liberated sage thinks of, wills, or desires, that comes about. Examples of this are given in Autobiography of a Yogi, and manifested all through Yogananda's life, especially toward its end, as seen in Paramahansa Yogananda. In Memoriam the life of Sri Ramakrishna also demonstrates this. Second, those that seek their highest good, self-realization, should reverence and honor the Atmajanam, the one who knows the self. This is very important. The Upanishad is not counseling us to make a god of a master or to substitute a Brahmajanani for God. When we want to learn something we go to an expert. In the same way, those seeking the knowledge of God should seek out the teachings of great masters of past and present. If very fortunate, the seeker will meet such a person in the flesh and have personal interchange with him. The mere presence of such a great soul can transform our thinking and awaken our consciousness. If we follow the instructions of an enlightened person regarding our inner development, we will come to the exact same state of consciousness revealed in him. Remember, true masters never die. They can bless and guide those who approach them in their hearts. Often this is sufficient for the seeker, and can be much safer than following a physically embodied teacher, for often sentimentality and emotional projection completely blind the seeker to the reality/unreality of the teacher. I personally knew gurus whose presence was stunning, even supernatural, but after their physical death they vanished from the earth plane, leaving their followers empty. But I also knew teachers who became more intimately present to seekers after their physical form had departed, proving themselves to truly be one with the immortal and omnipresent. Those who meditate can attune themselves to such masters and benefit from their very real presence. How can we tell a true master? A true master keeps pointing their students away from themselves to God, the only goal. And a true disciple is one who goes to God instead of making an idol or fetish of the guru. Anyone silly enough can be a brainwashed groupie, but the wise heed the teacher's message and go on to God. As Buddha said, a worthy teacher or teaching is like a finger pointing at the moon. The idea is to see the moon, not the finger. Nevertheless, the sage can be a very meaningful factor in our spiritual life, so the Upanishad continues with more information for us. The sage knows Brahman, the support of all, the pure effulgent being in whom is contained the universe. They who worship the sage, and do so without thought of self, cross the boundary of birth and death. Here are two more principles: a sage is one who knows Brahman in the absolute sense, and those who honor them without any personal desire for benefit or gain from them will break the ties of earthly rebirth. This second part gives us a picture of real disciples or students who will attain spiritual benefit from a teacher. They have no egocentric or personal desire coloring the way they relate to the teacher. Their only interest is in the self. They are not looking for a teacher to give them power or a reputation for having the best guru. Glory through association is of no interest to them. Nor are they wanting the guru to become a substitute for an unsatisfactory parent, friend, spouse, or lover. They do not want a personal relationship with the guru, to either possess the guru or be possessed by the guru. They are not looking for some kind of fulfillment in a relationship with the teacher, but only fulfillment in the self. Swami Bimalananda, a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, once told us in a conversation that those who lived in the ashram headquarters of Self-Realization Fellowship just for the personality of Yogananda eventually left the spiritual life as well as the ashram, but those who came for God remained steadfast in both. I think we can conclude that real disciples are as rare as real gurus. The Upanishad is not talking to spiritual fool-arounds, but to the worthy, those who wish, in the actual words of the Upanishad, to transcend the seat of human birth, the ego. Two kinds of seekers. Since the sage Angiras has put so much emphasis on the value of approaching and reverencing a master teacher, he now digresses a bit to point out what makes the student succeed or fail in spiritual life. He who, brooding upon sense objects, comes to yearn for them, is born here and there, again and again, driven by his desire. But he who has realized the self, and thus satisfied all hunger, attains to liberation even in this life. The Sanskrit implies that those in the grip of desire are born where the objects of desire are to be found, and bring the desire for them along. It does not say that the objects are obtained, however, and we see that this is a continual torment for human beings, wanting something but not able to get it. To be in such a situation will only condition the mind more and more toward grasping at the things desired. After who knows how long, the object is then gotten and either lost, or in danger of loss, or proves to be disappointing or misery-producing. Such is the dilemma of those who desire. There is no use asking silly questions like, how do I kill desire, or, how do I get rid of the ego? You do not kill desire or discard the ego, for that is a negative approach that by its nature will not work. Rather you take the positive approach, I shall realize the self. For realization of the self alone can quench all desire and dissolve the ego. Until then we ignore the clamor of desires, disregard the demands of the ego, and single-mindedly go after the self. Along the way the desires will begin dropping away of themselves, and the ego, starved of attention, will become less and less until desires and ego are simply gone forever. It may not be easy, but it is marvelously simple. The self is not to be known through study of the scriptures, nor through subtlety of the intellect, nor through much learning. But by him who longs for him is he known. Verily unto him does the self reveal his true being. Anyone who has traveled this far through the Upanishads is very well acquainted with the fact that the self is not to be known through the usual avenues of human knowledge. What is striking is the literal meaning of the next phrase: by the very fact that he the aspirant seeks for it, does it become attainable. Elsewhere I have mentioned that Sri Mahanandamayi often said, the desire for God is the way to God, meaning that the desire would prompt us to action, not just mere wishing. No one seeks for God who is not already able to find God, for it is the very nearness of God that prompts his seeking. Seeking God is a guarantee, a symptom, of sure attainment. It is also the thing which enables the self to reveal itself to him. The self is not to be known by the weak, nor by the thoughtless, nor by those who do not rightly meditate. But by the rightly meditative, the thoughtful, and the strong, he is fully known. Too many meanings are being missed by this translation. Here it is literally, this self is not attained by one devoid of strength, nor through delusion produced by false experience, nor through tapasya devoid of corresponding externals. But the self of the man of knowledge who strives with diligence through these means strength, clarity of sight and mind, and a life ordered in conformity to tapasya enters the abode of Brahman. There is a lot to think over here. The plain truths: those devoid of the strength imparted by the strict observance of yama and niyama cannot possibly know the self. Both yama and niyama should be listed here for our most serious consideration. Yama, restraint, consists of ahimsa, non-violence, non-injury, harmlessness; satya, truthfulness, honesty, i.e., non-lying; asteya, non-stealing, honesty, non-misappropriativeness; brahmacharya, sexual continence and control of all the senses; and aparigraha, non-possessiveness, non-greed, non-selfishness, non-acquisitiveness. Niyama, observance, consists of shosha, purity, cleanliness; santosha, contentment, peacefulness; tapas, austerity, practical, i.e., result-producing, spiritual discipline; swadhyaya, self-study, spiritual study; and Ishwara pranidhana, offering of one's life to God. A great deal of people, including yogis, are simply deluded, mostly because they follow false teachings and teachers whose errors actively harm them or cause them to stagnate spiritually. No matter how dedicated they may be, or even how disciplined, they cannot know the self because their intellects are confused and distorted, especially by their aberrant meditation practices. Lucky are those yoga duds who merely vegetate, but neither reach the goal. It is utterly useless to engage in meditation without making the life correspond to the sole purpose of meditation, liberation of the spirit. Yoga has been propagated here in the West for a little over 100 years, and see how little good and how much devastation and delusion has resulted. The reason is supremely simple: yama and niyama are not followed, and in many instances the fake gurus actually tell their dupes that yama and niyama are unnecessary. I cannot calculate how many tangled-minded yogis have boasted to me that they do not need to be vegetarians. If a survey is taken of almost any yoga group, over half will be living together in a relationship without being married, and those who are married have no idea of the need for brahmacharya in marriage except for the conception of children, and even then, not unrestrained. Sri Ramakrishna said that after the birth of 2 children the parents should live in chastity. In my commentary on the Gita I wrote the following that is most relevant here: the Dharma Shastras which describe the correct life of non-monastics are quite explicit about the need for husband and wife to lead lives of continence. See how the yogi parents of Paramahansa Yogananda lived it as presented in Autobiography of a Yogi. In the very first chapter we find, Mother made a remarkable admission to my eldest sister Roma: your father and myself live together as man and wife only once a year, for the purpose of having children. The fact that Yogananda, a devoted son and a pure-hearted yogi, would reveal this to the world in the pages of a book show how necessary he felt it was for both Eastern and Western readers to be shown the standard of chastity that yogis should observe in their life, not using their non-monastic status as excuse for lesser behavior. He underlined this later in the 44th chapter, giving these words written to Mahatma Gandhi by his wife Kasturba, "I thank you for the most perfect marriage in the world, based on Brahmacharya and not on sex." Please note that these are examples of married yogis, not monks imposing their ideas on others. Also remember that the Guru of Yogananda's parents was himself a married yogi, so there is no monastic influence in their case. I really have no hope that the foregoing will provoke anything but anger and resentment, but it still has to be said in case some do want to reach the goal whatever the price. The other aspects of yama and niyama are also important, but these two shoals have wrecked many a yogi of East and West. But the self of the man of knowledge who strives with diligence through these means, strength, clarity of sight and mind, and a life ordered in conformity to tapasya, enters the abode of Brahman. How to become a sage? How do the sages get that way? Having fully ascertained and realized the truth of Vedanta, having established themselves in purity of conduct by following the yoga of renunciation, these great ones attain to immortality in this very life, and when their bodies fall away from them at death, they attain to liberation. Having fully ascertained and realized the truth of Vedanta. First, the Vedantic truths, the teachings found in the Upanishads, are carefully read and pondered. But this is not enough. In fact, it is worthless unless they go on to realize those truths through meditation, for it is this realization which is of supreme value, and the wise diligently seek it. Having established themselves in purity of conduct, not wanting empty theory, the wise understand that their lives must be disciplined for the purification of their outer actions and inner consciousness. Moreover, they ground themselves immovably in that purity. Following the yoga of renunciation. Since neither Angaras or his students were monks, it is mistaken to interpret sannyasa yoga as monastic life. Rather, it is the inner discipline of detachment from all externals, sannyasa, while fixing the mind on the eternal, yoga. Immortality in this very life. Those who follow this path of the sages will realize their nature as immortality itself. They will not attain it, they will recover and manifest it. Nor will this happen in some vague heavenly realm, but right here and now. At death, they attain to liberation. For them there is no longer any need for future birth in the material plane. As the Buddhist texts say, birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world. But they are not just liberated from the earth, they are liberated from all worlds and enter the real as their eternal abode. The liberation process: when death overtakes the body, the vital energy enters the cosmic source, the senses dissolve in their cause and karmas, and the individual soul are lost in Brahman, the pure, the changeless. As rivers flow into the sea and in so doing lose name and form, even so the wise man, freed from name and form, attains the Supreme Being, the Self-Luminous, the Infinite. There are two aspects to these verses: what is shed by the sage and what he merges with in liberation. At the time of death, the various bodies no longer retain their configuration. Since they are no longer needed for future incarnations, they resolve back into the elements from which they came. Even the karmic forces, now unnecessary, melt away into basic energy along with the subtle bodies that created and embodied them. What remains? Brahman and their Atman self. Since these are really the source of all the foregoing, in reality nothing whatever is lost, only the conditioning dreams that held them in false bondage for so long. Finitude is traded for infinity, blessed bargain. He who knows Brahman becomes Brahman. No one ignorant of Brahman is ever born in his family. He passes beyond all sorrow. He overcomes evil. Freed from the fetters of ignorance, he becomes immortal. Who should learn this? Let the truth of Brahman be taught only to those who obey his law, who are devoted to him, and who are pure in heart. To the impure let it never be taught. In India everyone knows the basic principles of Brahmavidya. The sage is not recommending secrecy, but warning us away from wasting our time with people who are willfully disqualifying themselves for spiritual life. So who are qualified, adhikari, to receive detailed instruction in the eternal truths? Here is a much more literal and complete translation of the verse with some very interesting symbols. To them alone should one expound this knowledge of Brahman who are engaged in the practice of purificatory disciplines, versed in the Vedas, and devoted to Brahman, who personally sacrifice to the fire called Akarshi with faith, and by whom has been duly accomplished the vow of holding fire on the head. Engaged in the practice of purificatory disciplines. The word translated by this phrase is Kriyavanta, which means those who are engaged in the practice of kriyas. In the broad sense, a kriya is any practice that entails doing something, because the root of kriya is kri, which means I do. Any practice, exercise, rite, or even movement can be called a kriya. Usually, though, kriya means a yogic practice or method which purifies the body and nervous system, as well as the subtle bodies, to enable the yogi to reach and hold on to higher levels of consciousness and being. Only those who are perpetually engaged in such practices need even hear about those states and their meaning. For to anyone else it is mere theory which can easily be misunderstood by those who have no practical yogic experience. Versed in the scriptures. The word Shrotriya means one who both knows the scriptures and the disciplines and practices they enjoin. Although mere scriptural knowledge is of little value, it is necessary to know the teachings of the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita in order to retain a right perspective in spiritual life. Buddha said that a seeker for enlightenment must be sure to follow the teachings of the liberated ones that have gone before. A great deal of problems in spiritual life will be avoided if the Upanishads and Gita are studied daily and applied in their entirety. Devoted to Brahman. Shankara says that the Brahmanishtha are those devoted to Brahman as manifested in the cosmos, yet who are actively seeking to know the transcendent Brahman beyond the cosmos. In other words, the prevailing idea that one is either intent on Saguna or Nirguna Brahman, only one aspect to the exclusion of the other, is mistaken. That the worthy seeker starts from where he finds himself, in the realm of Ishvara, the creation, but strives to know that which lies beyond, as well. This is the real yoga of synthesis. Who personally sacrifice to the fire called Akarshi with faith. In the Atharva Veda there is a form of sacred fire called Akarshi, but in this verse the reference is to the soul fire, the fire that is Brahman. For Akarshi can be a contraction of Ekarishi, the soul seer. As the Gita says, Brahman is the ritual, Brahman is the offering, Brahman is he who offers to the fire that is Brahman. If a man sees Brahman in every action, he will find Brahman. The ultimate offering into Brahman is our own self, by whom has been duly accomplished the vow of holding fire on the head. Continuing this idea, the Rishi speaks of those who have accomplished in due order the Shiravratam, a vow of holding or carrying the holy fire in the head. That is, one who has established the divine fire of Brahman realization within himself, whoever carries Brahman in his head, his consciousness. There will not be a great number of students if these criteria are followed, but we must make sure that we are among them. The sum and substance. In conclusion, the Upanishad exclaims, "Hail to the sages! Hail to the illumined souls!" This truth of Brahman was taught in ancient times to Shaunaka by Angara. Hail to the sages! Hail to the illumined souls!